the opened philosophical Vatter-Hertz to his son, which he, because of his great age, no longer wished to keep hidden from him, but instead showed and explained to him everything that was necessary for the complete composition and preparation of the Philosopher's Stone. Formerly published in French, but now in the German language by Benjamin Rothschochen, Doctor of Philosophy and Medicine. Nuremberg. 1717. To the kindly reader of the Philosophical Vatter-Hertz. Gracious dear reader, although some fine little treatises concerning this subject of the high universal medicine have appeared in recent years, yet there is none among them to be found which has presented the secret of this highest art in such fair order, clear understanding, bright revelation, and easy comprehension as this one. It was written many years ago by a distinguished French philosopher and physician, and communicated to me by a good friend in France. Therefore, be pleased to accept it kindly, for it may serve as confirmation to those who already have some experience in the high philosophical work, as instruction to the beginning Hermetic sons, and to those who, without previous study, have entered the labyrinth of heedless and ruinous gold-making, it may serve fruitfully to the saving of their goods. Thus God may grant gracious illumination in the light of nature, under the guidance of a godly Christian life and conduct, to the praise and honor of his holy name. Hermes. In the higher sphere there is in the midst of the fountain is a vein, which is the first rule of the philosophers. In superiori sphera est in medio fontis vena, quae est philosophorum regula prima. Contents of the following chapters. 1. On the distinction between the high, both divine and natural work of the ancient wise men, and the common, most harmful alchemy. 2. On the planting of the golden tree. 3. On the virgin earth. 4. On the water of the wise, with which the golden tree is watered. 5. On the distinction between common quicksilver and the mercury of the philosophers. 6. On the extraction of the precious seed of the metals. 7. On the natural calcination. 8. On the washing of the philosophical earth. 9. On the natural cooking and ripening of the golden seeds and the mercury, and on the life-giving fire of the philosophers. 10. An exhortation concerning the right use, and the greatness of this work. Detailed instruction, in which a father explains to his son everything that is necessary for the composition and preparation of the great stone of the ancient wise men. Preface. My son, after I have long deliberated with myself whether I should leave to you in writing the great secret of the Cabala of the wise, at last my great age, in which I now find myself, has moved me to leave you this instruction as a final pledge of my fatherly affection. I have held it to be the greatest testimony of this affection, that I should openly reveal to you the whole practice of the true preparation of the Philosopher's Stone, sincerely and without any parables or ambiguous words, wherein is discovered the most exalted science that may exist in all of nature. That I might therefore impart to you the true instruction of our ingenious art, and disclose the place where we hide the keys which open the secrets of nature, I will tell you only the essential things which truly belong to our work, and will not confuse your understanding with a multitude of false and superfluous words, nor with allegories or foreign names for our simple single matter, which the philosophers use in their books to instruct the children of wisdom, but to mislead the ignorant and false disciples from the right path of truth. But, my son, in this discourse I will speak to you clearly, sincerely, and of nothing else but what is necessary for the preparation of this wondrous work, and I will without fail make known to you the true knowledge of our one earthly matter. I will teach you how to prepare the essential salt of wisdom, or the sulfur of the wise, and the mercury of the philosophers. I will teach you the true source of the living, everlasting water, which is the heavenly aqua vitae of the children of knowledge. I will show you the skill and art of how one should draw it from the center and from the deepest well of nature. I will give you the entire and complete knowledge of the hidden natural calcination of the philosophers, which they never put in writing, and which they would reveal only to their children and secret disciples, whispering it in the ear. In this discourse I will teach you the imbibition and washing of the philosophers, which are otherwise not common. I will teach you the fiery water, or watery fire, which they use to wash and whiten our virgin earth. I will show you how the philosophers bathe our precious matter in the flames of fire, so that they may make it white and again alive, a secret which they never wished to write in their books, nor teach to anyone except their secret Kabbalistic friends. Beyond all this, I will share with you the manner, kind, and establishment of the true incombustible and everlasting fire of the wise and ancient philosophers. Lastly, I will also teach you how to make the true golden oil of the philosophers, without any corrosive quality, which can never be brought into a corpus, and which they use for sealing, and to give their precious matter an ingress, or entry, and a flowing. This golden oil is the highest and greatest universal remedy or medicine against all diseases which can befall the human body. For it is without doubt the great potable gold of the ancient philosophers. The handling and practice of all these things I will truly teach you. For our work is easy to perform, and when our Kabbalistic secret is revealed, one finds that it is only a child's play, and more pleasant than a toilsome kind of work. But since this little book, which I write solely for your instruction, treats of nothing else than the true, nature-conform alchemy, I wish, before I proceed to the said matter, first to instruct you what the true alchemy is, and then to show you the great difference that must be observed between the common alchemists and the true philosophers. Chapter 1. What Alchemy is. My son, you shall know that the word alchemia in the Arabic tongue signifies as much as fire. Now alchemy is a very secret and hidden part of natural philosophy, indeed, the most necessary part of physics or natural science, from which has been made an art with which none of the others can be compared. For it teaches how one may bring all precious yet imperfect stones into perfection, how all human bodies afflicted with disease may be restored to perfect health, and how all corporeal metals may be transmuted into true gold and silver. This is accomplished through a universal medicinal body, to which all other particular medicines are subordinate, and this medicinal body is made and prepared by a secret and ingenious art, revealed only to the children of truth, and wrought by manual labor. My son, learn here that this science is called a flower of wisdom, for by it the understanding of man is enlightened, sharpened, and, for the sake of truth, finally confirmed through experience, of which witnesses yet living today can sufficiently bear testimony. This wondrous science of natural alchemy shows the human understanding a way by which it may comprehend how, in a more lively and profound manner, it can enter into the divine powers and therein subsist. On the difference between the common alchemists and the true philosophers. Although I tell you much about alchemy, yet I do not speak of that which is in vogue today. For I make a great and notable distinction between the alchemy that is commonly practiced, and that of the true philosophers, between the work of the present-day alchemists and that of the children of knowledge. That you may not be deceived in so highly necessary a matter, I forbid you to have much dealing with the false disciples and recipe-mongers, by which I mean the common alchemists, blind people, ignorant of the art of our hidden secrets, who will not fail to divert you from the true path of truth which I here show you, so that they may seduce you and give you cause to follow their false opinions and foolish fantasies. Know therefore, that between the true philosophers and the common alchemists there is as great a difference as between day and night. That this is so appears from this: all the true philosophers who have labored at our great work have agreed and been of one accord therein, namely, to take in hand only a single matter, and from it to make their stone, whereas the common alchemists take in hand many kinds of matters, whatever they can get hold of, that they may thereby reach their desired end. The true philosophers work with leisure, without expense and noise. They make and accomplish their work with a single vessel, a single furnace, with one or two matters, which are in truth only one. In contrast, the alchemists conduct their work with force, with great expense, with many furnaces, diverse vessels, with many kinds of different fires, and with a great heap of discordant materials. In sum, God Almighty created everything out of nothing, but the common alchemists make out of everything nothing. Whereas the true philosophers follow nature, and out of little, out of their matter, they make very great things. I could indeed bring forward here many more such things against the common alchemists than those I have already mentioned, but this is sufficient to show you that you would be utterly bereft of all your senses and reason if, after having become master of the highest science of nature which I teach you in this treatise, you should turn aside and hold discourse or conference with such men as are blind and ignorant in this high science. I have written this chapter for no other cause than to instruct you wherein the excellence of true natural alchemy consists. This comparison and contrast between a true philosopher and a common alchemist, which I here set forth, is meant to make you understand that with the philosophers you will always find the true wisdom, but with the common alchemists ignorance and lies. Now I will proceed, and explain and instruct you in the practice of the exalted and easy labor of the great philosophical work. But before I reveal the secret of our simple and deeply hidden operation or workings, I will first set down a chapter in which, as upon a painted tablet, I will portray the natural garden of the philosophers, wherein the true children of wisdom sow, plant, and transplant the solar and lunar tree of the wise. In the example which I shall give you, you must observe that all the care, labor, and diligence of the philosophers is directed to, and consists in nothing else but, the proper and careful preparation of their earth. When they, like good husbandmen, have diligently and naturally tilled and prepared it, they simply cast their metallic seed therein, which in time, by natural course, brings forth the solar, or golden tree. Chapter 2. How one must naturally sow and transplant the golden tree of the philosophers. My son, you know well that the grain of wheat which is sown into the earth must be timely, pure, and without any defect or corruption. Its vegetative, life-producing salt must not be altered or changed, so that it may bring forth fruit. When therefore such grain, of such condition, is cast into a fertile, well-manured, and well-tilled soil, nature receives it, resolves it, and unbinds it, or releases it from the bonds of its first fixation or firmness, so that by this means it may be led and advanced into the motion of its seminal powers. This is accomplished solely by the labor of nature, in a moist, shaped earth, through the mediation of the warm air and the rays of the sun. Thereafter, through the help and cooperation of the four elementary qualities, it is ripened and perfected. You see, by these things which I have related, how the grain of wheat is made to sour, how through this putrefaction it becomes soft and sweet, dissolves, and casts off its husk or skin. I say this much, that through this corruption the soul or life which lies hidden in the wheat grain, once it is aroused, reveals, and makes itself manifest. For as soon as the soul is free, released, and living, it first puts forth and casts out a small, very tender leaf, then a little delicate stalk, upon which, after it forms a knot, it rises ever higher, through the aid of the warmth of the air and the fertility of the earth, and continues to grow until it reaches the proper height of the ear. It then brings forth the grains, together with the straw and the little husks in which they are enclosed, which in due time blossom. And when the grain is fully perfected and ripened, nature adorns it as it were with a golden color. From these things which I here say, you perceive that the grain of wheat which was cast into the earth was dead, but that the soul which nature had before enclosed within it, since it was released and separated by putrefaction, then wrought the increase of the stem or stalk of the wheat. It rises above itself, and again becomes a wheat ear, and is become 100-fold better and stronger in its juicy essence and form. For if the little grain had not putrefied in the earth, the soul which lay hidden within it could never have grown into greater strength and vigor. Mark here, in what I tell you, three beginnings and distinct things in the new grain: first, the kernel which has putrefied in the earth; secondly, the stalk which grows out of the earth; thirdly, the ear which proceeds from the grain and the stalk. And after these three comes the fourth, namely the new grain. Know that these four things have different names, though the thing itself is but one, namely, the little tree of the grain which has sprung from a single seed. These four things were before hidden in the wheat grain, and have been brought forth by one and the same cause, namely, by the sole labor of nature, in a fertile soil, by warm air and the ray of the sun, as I have before said. But I beseech you, behold well with the eyes of your understanding this little chamber or tree of the wheat grain, in all its circumstances, that you may in like manner plant the golden tree of the philosophers, and thereby promote its increase of vigor and growth. Namely, that the most noble gold or silver, in whose nature all the heavenly and earthly powers of the prepared elements are infused, may grow and in an incorruptible seed be matured. That is to say, that this said gold or silver may not be dissolved away from its binding matter by any mineral substances, by separating waters, or the like. For just as the wheat grain, when corrupted through the moisture of the earth, putrefies and is loosed from the bonds of its first fixation, so also the superfine gold and silver may be dissolved and released from their bonds, in which they have been held together by sulfur and salt, just as the wheat grain was. This the philosopher can easily do with the key of the wise, namely, through the juicy and fertile virgin earth of the philosophers. In a word, gold can, by means of our living natural water, be dissolved, calcined, prepared, and by sublimation, putrefaction, and digestion be disposed thereto, so that after all foreign external things are removed away, it remains in its spermatic power, and is advanced unto a new generation or birth. By this means also the soul and spirit of our living gold are drawn out of their own body in which they had been imprisoned, lying altogether impotent and powerless for the generation of the stone of the wise. For there is nothing more certain than this, that nothing in the world can be reborn and raised up again, unless it has first died and putrefied. And this is so because death is the sole means, way, and entrance unto a new birth, and all this takes place by means and way of natural heat. Furthermore, the dissolution of the wheat grain does not take place in the sandiest, stoniest, and driest soil, but rather through a visible and tempered moisture of the earth, whereby it may swell forth and draw into its root the natural power of the central salt of the earth, as if from a peculiar appetite, so that it mingles with it, takes its nourishment from it, unites inseparably with it, remains with it, and hides itself therein. When the body in this way receives and draws into itself the natural moisture, and the same is enclosed within it, then the body of the seed opens itself, and prepares for a generation or propagating birth. So also, and in just this manner, is our virgin natural earth disposed and purified, without any addition of foreign things. I will say thus much, that into our prepared field, which is in such fashion purified, that is, into the Mercury of the wise, we cast the metallic seed of the living gold of the philosophers, to bring forth their golden tree. Here, my dear son, I wish to speak yet more plainly, and in few words to teach you the secret of the Philosopher's Stone. Therefore you must know for certain, that all the labor, toil, and ingenious diligence of the hidden secret of the wise consists in nothing else than in how one may naturally bring to perfection their precious virgin earth, and how thereafter it must be cultivated and prepared, precisely after the manner in which good husbandmen prepare their fields wherein they bring forth wheat. This you must hold as a great secret. Observe how the husbandman acts in order to bring forth his grain. He first seeks out a good soil. Then he provides himself with good seed, such as nature can give him. After this, he applies himself with all diligence and care to prepare and till the soil well. First, he breaks it up and clears it from the large stones and thorns which might harm the seed to be sown therein. Then he makes the earth yet finer and softer, by repeated tillage at different times of the year. This partly that his soil may be moistened, watered, and washed, and by the heavenly powers, through rain and dew, enriched and impregnated, and partly that the soil may be dried and freed from its excessive watery moisture. Again, he warms his earth, and maintains that warmth by the fertility of the dung which he casts upon it. When all this is done, he takes his seed and sows it, without further art, into the earth which he has so diligently and carefully prepared. From this you see that the husbandman, in order to bring forth his grain, turns all his effort and care to nothing else but to cultivate his field well, and to use the best seed that nature gives and provides. When now the children of wisdom likewise perform their natural labor as do good husbandmen, then they also rightly accomplish their work. And just as in husbandry, that which costs the farmer most dearly is the price and value which he first pays for the land, though it be quite common and lightly esteemed, so likewise that which costs the philosopher most is nothing other than the acquiring of the earth. And when the wise possess this earth, then all their toil and labor extends to nothing further than to dispose the same naturally, according to the labor of wisdom. In just this same manner as husbandmen do, so also do we free our earth from all its impurity and superfluity. Then we make it finer and subtler, wash it, sprinkle it, and dry it according to art and nature. When this is done, we manure it, yes, we manure it with its own natural fatness. And when thereafter it receives the heavenly dew, which we impart to it in the wise manner, then is it so well prepared that it is ready and disposed to receive within itself the metallic seed of our stone, which is the living gold of the wise, and which in time brings forth the golden tree of the philosophers. Behold, my dear son, this is in few words the whole foundation, the key, and the fountain of the philosophical work. I say thus much, that by means of our virgin earth, once it has been prepared and cultivated after the manner of the wise, and by means of our living gold, which is the true metallic seed, cast into this precious leafy earth, the golden and silver tree takes root and grows in such a way that it may again be transplanted elsewhere, and according to the art of the wise, be set in another place. For it is certain and true, that the gold which, after the manner of the wise, is made by their artistic hidden secret, attains through its rebirth such great and extraordinary power and virtue that it incomparably surpasses the virtue of the gold which nature makes in the earth. Moreover, the second rebirth surpasses the first, the third surpasses the second, and the fourth surpasses the third. That is to say, at every time when it is transplanted or set again, it multiplies tenfold in its power and virtue through its rebirth, and attains such a degree of surpassing perfection that through its penetrating heat and highest purity, it renders silver and quicksilver into perfect and natural gold of the mines. Now then, my son, since I have shown you the right way and manner in which the children of wisdom rightly and well sow, plant, and again transplant the golden tree of the wise, I will in the following chapter explain to you what the true matter is which the wise employ to bring their blessed stone into work. Thereafter I will in due order reveal to you all our secret natural operations and works, and at the end of this book impart to you the practice. Chapter 3. What are the true signs by which one must recognize the virgin earth of the wise, which is assuredly the Prima Materia of the Philosopher's Stone? Just as nothing is more certain than death, and nothing more uncertain than the manner of death and the hour of dying, so also nothing is more certain than that the true philosophers work upon a definite matter. But nothing is more unknown to the chymists and the ignorant than the knowledge of that matter which the true children of wisdom employ to accomplish the great work. Now, my son, since I have promised you to teach you the practice of our stone plainly and entirely, I will speak of it simply, sincerely, and without artifice. I will begin your instruction by relating the properties and sure signs by which you, without error, shall recognize our true matter among all things of the world. I will tell you the infallible, peculiar, and distinctive marks which belong to no other thing in nature but solely to our virgin earth. You must know then, that the subject or substance to be taken in order truly to make our universal medicine is a subtle matter which is not found upon the surface of the earth of living men. It is a bodily spirit or a spiritual body, which is assuredly the true saltpeter of the wise. To speak properly, it is a fat, heavy, and juicy earth, most useful and most precious, very common to the understanding but very hidden from the ignorant. This glorious matter is found everywhere, in the valleys and level fields, in the caverns of the earth and in the mountains, yes, even in one's own house. It is the dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, and the precious natural saltpeter of the wise. It is the lovely foam from which Adam was made. In short, our matter is a virgin earth upon which the sun has never cast its rays, though it be its father, and the moon its mother. The philosophers call our virgin earth the nurse of the gods, since from her proceed indeed Sol and Luna, and even all the metals. She is also called the bride of the starry heaven, since he daily and abundantly imparts to her his good influence. Hence she is also called a soul and life-giving spirit of the elemental earths, for she has shut within herself the generative or procreative power, yes, all colors and properties of everything in nature. And what is more important in our precious matter, without her nothing could live. The wise often call our earth their androgynous being and their hermaphrodite, because it has two natures, that is, because from it are extracted the sulfur and the mercury of the wise, of which the one is taken as male, the other as female. She is also called the Proteus and the chameleon of the wise, because she transforms and changes herself in many ways. Indeed, she is capable of so many forms and shapes that the sun and the air change her in a natural instant, each doing its part in the bringing forth of our precious matter. This alone is enough for a philosopher, to learn to know our virgin earth, and to distinguish it from the common earth. But that I may teach you to recognize it rightly and without error, I tell you once more that our matter is nothing else but earth, yet not the earth upon which we walk, but that which hovers over our heads, which the wise call their virgin and purified earth. It is an earth from the beginning of the world, and yet has never been an earth. It is the element which elementates the earth, or gives her origin. To say it briefly, it is the noble earth, the earth of the wise, whose father is the sun and whose mother is the moon. It is, I say, the fatness of the mineral earths, the noble spiritual and corporeal essence or substance out of which the true Mercury of the wise is made. She is in truth the true common Mercury of the wise, but not the common Mercury of the vulgar. It is the heavenly blessing which proceeds from this heavenly earth, since she is watered and highly impregnated with the heavenly powers of the great starry heaven. This precious matter may be sought and taken in the caverns, on the plains, and on the mountains, for it is found in all places of the inhabited earth. But one must take and seize it before the sun beholds it. You must furthermore know, that when you shall have the right knowledge of our one matter, then you will draw from it the Mercury of the wise, the virgin earth of the wise, the precious salt of nature, the living and everlasting water of the children of wisdom. By the same you will make the gold, or the metallic sulfur of the wise, and you will compose or unite their rare and most hidden, incombustible fire. But believe me in this, it is almost impossible that one could discover and know what the true and only matter of the Philosopher's Stone is, unless it be faithfully revealed by a good friend who knows it. For that which we call the philosophical work, out of which it is to be made, is nothing other than the little fish Achilles, which has neither blood nor bones, and lies enclosed in the deepest part of the center of the great sea of the world. Now this little fish is very small, solitary, and unique in its form, and the sea is great and vast, hence it is almost impossible to catch it, namely for those who do not know in what place or part of the world it rests. Believe me assuredly, that he who, as Theophrastus says, cannot bring down the moon from the firmament and bring it from heaven to earth, then make it into water, and thereafter bring it into earth, he will never find the true matter of the stone of the wise. For in truth, the one is no harder to do than the other to attain. Nevertheless, when we faithfully whisper a few words into the ear of a good friend, we then teach him the hidden secret of the wise, how to catch the little fish Remora naturally, quickly, and easily, which has the power to stop the greatest ship of the oceanic sea, that is, the proud and arrogant spirits of the world, who, since they are not children of the art, cannot grasp the rich and precious treasures which nature has hidden therein, in the eastern and heavenly water of life of our sea. But that I may give you a clear light concerning our one matter, or virgin earth, and teach you the high art of the children of wisdom, how you must bring it about, I must first instruct you concerning the magnet of the wise. This has the hidden natural property to draw to itself, from the center and the deepest part of our sea, indeed from the highest and from the most distant regions, from the Orient to the Occident, the little fish Achilles or Remora. When it is fished according to nature, it is by nature changed into a water, and thereafter into an earth, which, when it is duly prepared by the most artful secret of the wise, has the power to dissolve all fixed bodies, to make fixed bodies volatile, and to cleanse all poisonous bodies. Of this you will find the practice described at the end of this little book in few words. Chapter 4. Of the philosophical water, which is indispensably necessary for the composition of the work of the wise. After you have full knowledge of the true hidden matter from which the wise make their stone, if you desire to attain the perfection of their great work, you must first by a simple and secret art transform this matter into a water, and when you have let it flow forth naturally, you must then change it into an earth, by a most secret, gentle, and natural means. And when you have thus prepared it, you may be assured that you possess the true virgin earth of the wise, which is an earth from the beginning of the world, and yet never has been an earth. From this virgin earth the wise make their Mercury, indeed their double Mercury. From the same, I say, they draw their tearful water of life, which they call their watery fire or fiery water, because by nature it devours all bodies and dissolves them in the root and in all their parts. But when I tell you that it dissolves bodies, I do not mean that you should employ metallic bodies for this. For the body is not the matter upon which we work, since bodies cannot enter into and penetrate themselves. Bodies have no effectual power or force except through the spirits they contain. Yes, even the spirits themselves cannot perform their office or function unless they be freed and released from the hard bodies in which they are entangled and enclosed. From this, my dear son, you must conclude that the transmutation or change of the metals cannot be brought about through hard, dry, and fixed bodies, but only through the soft and fluid ones. That is to say, one must bring back the moisture, by making the hidden manifest. The wise so call it when they say that the hard must become soft, which is nothing else but to make the bodies again crude, that is, to soften them in the water of the fountain of youth, until they are freed from their hard and dry bodies. For the dry body, as I have already said, cannot enter in, nor impart nor color anything except itself. Since the gross and earthy body colors nothing, it is therefore because it cannot enter in, and for that reason also it cannot bring about any alteration or change. Thus it is certain and true, that neither gold nor the other hard metals can tinge, until the spirit hidden within them be drawn forth, and brought out of the center of our golden Adamic earth, through our white water, which will spiritualize them and make them white, yes, even into a spirit and a wondrous soul. If you rightly consider my words, you will recognize that they are directed to teach you that the principal aim of our divine secret is only this, how one may bring the hard, dry bodies into a fluid, volatile, and spiritual substance, by means of our living water from the fountain of the wise. O dear son, how wonderful is nature, since she has the power to change bodies into spirits, which she nevertheless could not do if the spirit had not first been incorporated into the body, and if the body together with the spirit did not both become volatile, and thereafter fixed and permanent. I say this much, that the noble art of the wise is most wondrous, since it can make gold volatile and fleeting, though by nature it is most fixed. By these words, which I say to you, I mean that if the bodies be not dissolved by our living water, and thereby imbibed, softened, and so opened that they, losing their massive hardness, are converted into a pure subtle spirit, our labor will surely be in vain. For unless the bodies be transformed into primal bodies, that is, brought back into their first matter, then one has surely not yet found the rule or the key of our art. For the whole aim and end of our secret is only this, how one may change the hard and solid bodies into a fluid substance, to make therefrom a perfect tincture. For it is truly certain, that every tincture tinges 100,000 times more when it is in a fluid substance than it could otherwise do when locked in a hard gross body, as may be seen in the example of saffron, cochineal, and scarlet. Therefore I say to you again, that unless the bodies be made small and subtle by water and natural fire, so that they may rise up like spirits, yes, I say, until they become like water, vapor, or quicksilver, you have not yet found the key of our art. Therefore, whoever wishes to work according to nature, that is, to labor with certainty in the philosophical work, must begin his first work with the destruction and dissolution of bodies, and with the change of the metallic forms or shapes. It must come to this, that the bodies be no longer bodies, but only fixed spirits. One must unweariedly and necessarily destroy the hard solid form and shape of our metallic, vegetable, and animal, that is, growing, living, and manifoldly useful Adamic earth, and change it into a moist, soft, and fluid form or essence. For only in this quality does it have power and strength to enter into other imperfect bodies and to mingle with them inseparably and indissolubly. Which the hard bodies of metals can never do, being altogether too earthly and material. But that I may speak more plainly to you, and disclose all the obscurity of the wise, you must know this, if you wish happily to attain the perfection of the work of the wise, you must in all your labors follow nature, from the beginning of the work to its end. For thereby the wise make their double Mercury, and through their twofold Mercury they bring their stone to completion. Nature, I say, gives them the true matter, in which they work of itself, they are only its servants, removing some things, altering others, and again restoring them, according to the need of its condition. Yet all this is done according to the intention and accustomed order of nature, so that she may work the more powerfully. Just as now the philosophers are the true followers of nature, so they act as nature does, which admits nothing foreign into the composition of her work, but always works through things uniform and of like nature. For nature loves nature and delights in nature. Thus also must the wise make their stone, using nothing foreign, nor in any way introducing anything alien into their work. One must proceed according to the nature of the thing that is to be dissolved, and the thing to be dissolved must be of the same nature as the dissolving thing. Consider well, dear one, how a child is conceived, the menstruum or monthly blood of the woman, is it not in its beginning and origin of the very same nature and matter as that from which the child is formed, though to appearance there seems a great difference between them? So also must the water of life, our fountain of youth, be of the nature of the metallic seed, so that through the close affinity and kinship of nature, they may unite with one another, and that the strength of this natural love may destroy and break the bands and fetters which hold this precious seed so firmly bound and entangled. If our dry and living water were not of the nature of our sulfur and natural mercury, it could never unite with it in all its parts, as it does when they are joined together. It could never have the power to release it from its prison. But our dry metallic water is so well disposed toward it, and so of its very nature, that it is its sulfur, the sulfur of the natural mercury. They are both of one origin, and both proceed from one fountain and one root, therefore they also love one another, and unite with one another through the uniformity of nature. And when they are united together, then we call it our twofold mercury. Therefore take careful heed that you rightly prepare the living and dry water of our fountain, namely in the manner in which I shall teach you, for it is truly the beginning of our work. It is, I say, the noble and first key of the work of the wise, the foremost and most necessary instrument or tool of our stone. And hold it for certain, that he who does not have the art of making it will make the work of the philosophers fruitless. For our water is the only instrument in nature by which one may, in accordance with nature, obtain the noble metallic seed, or the living gold of the wise. For the sulfur of the wise can in no other way be drawn out than by its natural menstruum, which is fitted to this precious and wondrous metallic seed. And this natural menstruum is nothing other than our living and dry water. Therefore think of nothing else, but that you rightly prepare our living, or heavenly, water of life, which no hands can stain, which is sweet and good, without sharpness. For by it, and through it, we draw forth the germ or metallic seed, which is the true and only matter of the Philosopher's Stone. Chapter 5. Of Quicksilver, its nature and properties. As quicksilver in the chemical art is the common quicksilver, which in outward appearance is cold and moist, yet in its inner part is secretly hot and dry. Here you must note, that that which is hidden within it as hot and dry, is exceedingly fiery, unctuous, and moist. It is a living and corporeal spirit, in which are hidden all the congelations or coagulations of our stone. The elementary spirit of common mercury is altogether, without reserve, subject to all the higher spirits, that is, to all sulfurs or metallic seeds of the greater lights. For since it has no certain form or figure, it takes upon itself the spirit of the sulfur of every metal, just as wax receives the impression of every engraved seal. And just as the earth, when it draws to itself the water, is impregnated with the power of the water, that it may be changed into a production and nourishment of plants, so does also the common quicksilver, when it takes upon itself the elementary spirit of the sulfur of gold, it receives the form and figure of gold. Likewise, when it draws the elementary spirit of the sulfur of silver, it takes upon itself the form and figure of silver. Thus it unites itself naturally with the one and with the other, and accommodates itself to all the higher metallic spirits, just as man with his wife. And this never happens without a mingling. And hold secretly what I have now told and revealed to you. Now, that I may give you a clearer and fuller understanding how the fixed sulfur of the wise and the common mercury undergo their change and transformation from one nature into another, consider, I beseech you, that common water, though by nature it is cold and moist, nevertheless in cooking mingles with vegetables or plants, and from them takes another quality and power different from its own natural one. This happens because of the things which are mingled with it, through which, when they are so mingled and united, the water in every decoction takes to itself the qualities and properties of the mixed thing. Just so does the philosopher's mercury. It clothes itself with, assumes, and impregnates itself with another nature and quality, in that it takes upon itself the perfect nature of the metallic sulfurs with which it is naturally cooked. For when it is cooked with the sulfur of gold, it will take upon itself the nature of gold, and will be changed into the nature of gold, and be coagulated or fixed. When you cook it in copper or tin, it will likewise take upon itself their quality and be changed into their nature. So will it also behave with all the other metals. For these things happen only according to the measure of nature, and nothing is stronger than nature. And just as it is impossible that nature should err from the right path of nature, so I also teach you, that if you would by nature make gold and silver, you must dissolve their metallic seeds in the common mercury, mingle them, and cook them according to nature. For our common mercury is properly and naturally their metallic water, in which they take upon themselves a change and transformation of one nature into another. That is, after the common mercury has drawn forth the seeds of gold or silver from the innermost part of their bodies, then is it impregnated with their nature, just as water is impregnated with the vegetable things or plants which are boiled in it. And as the nature of the seeds or metallic sperms is altered or changed in our virgin earth or universal mercury, so also is their color altered or changed therein, and hidden, and so insinuated or enclosed under the form and figure of our common mercury, that we can in no wise recognize them, until at last, when they shall be coagulated, congealed, or fixed. But my son, here you must not deceive yourself, as the ignorant always do when they deal with the word universal mercury. For you know well that there is a notable difference between the universal mercury and the mercury of the common people. When we speak of common quicksilver, we mean the mercury that is universal, and which gives life to all things that are in the world. But the mercury or quicksilver of the common people, which the ignorant take for ours, is that which sausage sellers and apothecaries sell. You must know this, as a great philosopher has said, the mercury of the wise, although it is common and most necessary to the whole world, yet is not found upon earth. It does not show itself, it is naked, and yet nature has wondrously enveloped it. Moreover, the blessed philosopher adds, observe the difference which there is between our quicksilver and the mercury of the vulgar. 1. The vulgar mercury does not dissolve gold and silver nor unite with them so that it cannot again be separated from them. But our common mercury dissolves gold and silver and mingles with them so that they can never again be separated, no more than water can be separated from other water with which it is mixed. 2. The vulgar mercury has in it a combustible, black, and evil sulfur, but our mercury has in it an incombustible, fixed, most white, and most red sulfur. 3. The vulgar mercury is cold and moist, but ours is warm and moist. 4. The vulgar mercury blackens metallic bodies, ours makes them white and brings them to a crystalline whiteness. 5. When vulgar mercury is precipitated, it becomes a yellow powder and an evil sulfur, but our quicksilver is, through heat, transformed into a most white, fixed, and sweet sulfur. 6. The more one boils vulgar mercury, the subtler, more fluid, and more volatile it becomes. But ours does the contrary. For the more one boils it, the thicker it becomes, and the less fluid. From all these circumstances, which this distinguished man recommends us to observe, you may see what a great difference there is between the one and the other. But when I shall have shown and proved to you that the investigators of this art, who take the vulgar mercury to be our common mercury, are not sufficiently instructed in the mysteries of our Kabbalistic art, and that, in thus turning so erroneously far aside from the right path of truth, this one error hinders them from ever reaching the appointed purpose and goal of their endeavor. I will then teach you yet another matter, which, in regard to the composition of our stone, is of no less importance than that which I have already taught you. This is what I will now explain to you, namely, the place, known to very few, wherein the wise have cunningly hidden the keys which can unlock the locks of the secret mysteries of their art. You must therefore know, that it is altogether impossible that you can attain to the work of the wise, unless you know our artificial process, by which our mercury can be made thick, gradually and naturally. For the wise say, that mercury or quicksilver can transform nothing, unless it has first itself been changed and transmuted from one nature into another. And when it is so changed, then it changes also, when it is dissolved, then it dissolves, and when it is coagulated, hardened, and frozen, then it coagulates, hardens, and freezes. Now we harden not our natural mercury, nor cause it to freeze, for any other reason than that we may bring it into such a condition that it is fit to harden, coagulate, and thicken all other common, vulgar quicksilver. For the true transmutation of the metals takes place in no other way than through our common mercury made thick, frozen, and changed from one nature into another. Nor is our mercury hardened or altered by the wise except that it may obtain the power and ability to harden and to change. For when it is boiled, united, and dissolved by decoction with the sulfur or metallic seed, then we transmute within the space of an hour. But if it has not first been frozen, hardened, and transmuted, we can transmute nothing. In sum, my son, learn that this is one of the highest secrets of our art, namely the knowledge of how to make our common mercury artificially and gradually thick. For when it is in this state, it is assuredly the key which both opens and shuts the door of our stone. It is most certainly true that the sulfur of the wise is the soul, the form, and the metallic seed of the stone. But it is equally true that our common mercury is also its body, its matter, and its earth. The sulfur is the man, and our mercury is the woman, who is easily impregnated by her natural bridegroom. The metallic sulfur is the fatness of the earth of the wise, and the common mercury, when composed and united with the sulfur according to nature, is then the fat earth of the wise. It is, I say, the earth made fat and manured, then, of the wise, which is apt and ready to bear fruit, that is, it has the power and strength to effect a transmutation or change. It is true that our mercury by itself alone can do nothing, but when united with its co-working thing, namely the metallic sulfur, then its powers and properties are heightened and exceedingly increased. For the metallic sulfur raises our mercury to a very high degree of excellent heat, yea more, it specifies it, and communicates to it a spermatic or generative power and a propagating virtue, which our mercury does not have of its own nature, but borrows from the powers and properties of the metallic seeds. For I have already told you that our mercury is absolutely subject to, and dependent upon, the elementary spirit of the higher sulfurs, since, having no proper determined form of its own, it assumes the form of any metal whatsoever, uniting itself lovingly and naturally with the elementary spirit of the metallic sulfur, as the woman with the man. Through this union and loving embrace of the spirits, our mercury of the wise conceives and is impregnated with the metallic form of gold or of silver, just as wax receives the impression of a signet or seal. And when the nature of our frozen and thickened mercury is transmuted or changed into the form and figure of gold or silver, then it changes all other mercury into the same nature. Now, my son, to speak of it briefly, the practice of making the mercury of the wise, together with the art of how it must be congealed and thickened, will be found at the end of this book. Chapter 6. That the composition of the Philosopher's Stone takes place only from the pure seeds of the metals, and how one may naturally extract and bring forth the earthly seeds. My son, you must know that this is one of the greatest secrets of our art, namely, the knowledge of the true practice of the living gold, or the metallic sulfur. It is undeniably true that to have understanding of the earthly virgin earth is a great science, but I must also confess that the knowledge and practice of our wondrous heavenly water of life, the life-giving water, is likewise very wonderful. And the ingenious art of preparing it is, in the noble work of the art, as highly necessary as its rare and supernatural effects and operations are extraordinary and marvelous. Though the qualities and virtues of our heavenly water of life, and the unusual powers of our mercury or virgin earth, are very great and exalted, nevertheless you must believe me that the metallic sulfur of the philosophers is incomparably more excellent, more hidden, and more precious than both of these. Just as the rosebush is sought and prized by the gardener solely for the sake of its blossoms which it bears in due season, so also the virgin earth of the wise is valued and esteemed by them only for the flower and fruit of the living gold, which it causes to germinate and to bring forth in its time. And just as the husbandman's soil would be altogether useless to him, if he had not good seed to sow therein, so also our heavenly mercury, which is the earthly virgin earth of the wise, would profit us nothing if we did not have the living gold of the wise to sow therein. Indeed, one may well say that the metallic sulfur of the philosophers lies hidden in the virgin earth of the wise, just as the precious stone lies hidden in the rock, and that our living and dry water is to be compared to the stonecutter, who breaks the rock to reveal the precious jewel of wisdom. To speak rightly of the matter, as is fitting, of these two things one may justly say that the virgin earth of the wise and our dry water are in the natural work of the wise two natural instruments, and two most necessary workmasters for the making of our blessed stone. But it is certain that the knowledge of our metallic sulfur is a science far harder to attain. Indeed, you must know that the ingenious extraction, in accordance with nature, of our living gold is the highest secret of all the secrets of the wise. And though it is most difficult to find, it is even more necessary to know. For it is certain that without the sulfur of the wise it is altogether impossible to attain the perfection of their work. This metallic sulfur of the wise is the first matter of the metals, it is the metallic sulfur and the living gold of the children of wisdom. It is the true matter from which our golden tree must be born. It is the noble key which opens and shuts the door of our stone. It is the soul, the form, and the metallic seed of gold and silver. And when the wise have gathered this metallic seed according to nature, they call it their first matter. And in truth, my son, it is the very same which they have concealed in their writings under so many names and figures. Which I also command you to do, and to keep secret, and never to reveal openly, as I shall teach you at the end of this chapter. But that I may give you a clear understanding what is the sulfur of the wise, which is truly our living gold or metallic seed, I will in few words indicate to you in what manner the generation or formation of gold takes place in the womb of the earth. For thereby you will gain knowledge of the first beginning of the composition of gold, and I will give you a clear light concerning this first beginning, that you may recognize what are the true roots or metallic seeds of gold. From which, when I shall have taught you how to extract them, you shall then assuredly be able to make the Philosopher's Stone. You know that everything which grows from the earth is brought forth from a fertile soil through the working of moisture and natural heat. So also are the metals formed, and brought forth by the fertile Mercury, which is their first matter. When this is somewhat aided by dryness and an accompanying moisture, that is, when the Mercury has been joined and united with a pure salt and a pure sulfur, then this clear Mercury brings forth gold, and is turned into gold by the power and virtue of nature. And for this very reason is the Mercury of the wise called the fertile and juicy earth of the metals. Now the metals receive their hard and corporeal substance only through the union and compaction of the three beginning things of their natural composition. For the sulfur gives the body, the Mercury the property, strength, and virtue, and the salt the bond or coagulation. The sulfur which is present in the natural generation of gold is so purified from the dross and impurity which it has from nature, that it is not possible to find a purer metallic body. This is in truth the sulfur of the wise, when one can obtain it in such simple and perfect purity. When the Mercury also is most thoroughly well prepared and cleansed from all earthly accident, it is then transformed solely into its mercurial body. This is the Mercury of the wise, which makes or generates the gold. As for the salt of gold, it is nothing else but a metallic, vitriolic water, which is at last completely purified, crystallized from all impurity, roughness, brittleness, and from all aluminous and vitriolic moisture. From all this you may clearly recognize what are the true principia or the first matter from which gold is generated in the womb of the earth, and be assured that from these metallic roots, of the kind from which gold is brought forth in the ore mines, the womb of the earth, it proceeds. Yes, if you open the eyes of understanding, you will see that I give you a clear light on how to sow and plant the golden tree of the wise in a natural way. For if it be true, as the philosophers say, that gold makes gold, just as man begets man, then I will, upon this infallible foundation, reveal to you the hidden secret of the children of wisdom. I will, I say, teach you that the wise man, from the very same beginnings of sulfur, salt, and mercury from which gold is made, from these same matters and pure substances, these, I say, are the true metallic seeds of gold, extracts and draws forth that from which he makes the stone of wisdom. In sum, I will say and conclude this much, that this is one of the greatest secrets of our art, namely, that one must know how to unlock gold and its first matter by means of our heavenly viscous water of life, and that one must be able to make each of the essential parts, that is, the salt, the sulfur, and the mercury, into a visible and tangible body. Then, by this means, the first matter of the wise is brought into the last matter, and the last again into the first. Truly, whoever does not understand, nor rightly can perform, this hidden philosophical operation, that is, whoever by the spagyric and truly philosophical art cannot separate the substances of our natural mercuries, and thereafter reunite them again, with weight and measure, without any spot or stain of impurity, such a one has not yet found the secret of our art, and ought not therefore to undertake to make the Philosopher's Stone. When you shall, by a simple work, have extracted and separated our sulfur, our essential Adamic earth, and thereafter have reunited it, as I have told you, in proportionate weight, without any spot or stain of impurity, then you shall be assured that you truly possess the right metallic seed and the living gold of the wise, which is the sole matter from which the Philosopher's Stone is made. When this living gold is sown in a fertile earth suitable to this matter, that is, in the Mercury of the wise, and when it is cooked therein, digested, and perfected by our Olympian life-giving heavenly fire, it becomes an elixir, or the purest sulfur of the wise, from which the children of wisdom, by the philosophical art and the simple aid and guidance of nature, prepare their great universal medicine. This heals all diseased bodies, purges away the poisonous, dissolves the fixed bodies, and gives form to the volatile. To conclude this chapter, my son, I will once more tell you, that the solar sulfur, which we have philosophically extracted from our Adamic earth, is the heartfelt key which opens and shuts the door of our stone. It is the unknown metallic seed of gold, and without this wondrous seed our earthly earth cannot bring forth. Just as a man begets a man, and as every form brings forth its like through art and seed, so also, if you wish to plant or sow the solar tree of the wise, it is necessary that you have the true roots of gold. But if you do not have the true metallic seed, then you will never accomplish anything good in our work, nor ever see the golden tree of the wise grow or bear fruit. Likewise, just as the propagating seed, by its power, brings forth things of its own nature, so you must believe that when you sow the golden seed in our virgin earth, you will reap gold, and when it is of silver, you will reap silver. I can assure you from my own experience, that it is the philosophical sulfur, which we sow and make together from these two pure and clean substances, namely, from our earthly Mercury and from the solar metallic seed. Yet it is certain that its power is increased, strengthened, and exalted, and multiplied a millionfold more than when it was swallowed up, bound, and wrapped in the mingling of its massive substance. Therefore know now, that it is altogether impossible to reach this wondrous principal work of the Philosopher's Stone, unless one has the true practice of extracting, in accordance with nature, the true and pure seminal substances of gold and silver. Which cannot be done except through the most hidden secret of our philosophical Mercury, of which I will presently declare to you the tangible operation, in few words, at the end of this book. Chapter 7. On Natural Calcination. The natural calcination or burning of our spiritual and natural matter is so essential and unavoidably necessary to the work of the wise, that without it, it is altogether impossible to arrive at the composition of their stone. For through it we draw forth the salt of nature, the sulfur, and the mercury of the wise. But know that this natural calcination is known only to the true children of wisdom. It is wrought most ingeniously, with great art, which is yet altogether simple and easy to perform, namely, to those to whom it has been shown, and who know it. But to those who have no knowledge of it, the secret is very hidden, nor will it be any easier for them to find or invent it by themselves, or by the reading of books, than it would be to bring down the moon from the firmament and set it upon the earth. Now we perform our natural calcination or roasting for two reasons. First, that the combustible parts of the fatty sulfurs, which are corrupting and destructive, may be loosed and separated entirely from the foul spirits which are to be calcined, those combustible parts which, by their adhesive nature, resist and oppose their natural calcination in the fire. The second reason why we calcine is so that we may drive out the volatile watery coagulated moisture, which in the root is bound with the fixed part, and so bring our earthly matter, according to nature, into the salt or lime of nature. As to the reason why we calcine our matter, and turn it into a lime of nature, and drive out the volatile and fatty sulfurs, and expel the watery moisture, this is for no other cause than that we may dry out our earthly matter according to nature, and thereby produce in it a porosity or opening in its salt or natural lime. For you must know, if the matter were not porous or open, it could not draw to itself its own nourishment, nor could its multiplying food enter into it. Hence mark well what I say, our spiritual matter must be dried out in a natural way, because in the beginning of our work the dry must overcome or surpass the moist. For since it is of the quality and substance of earth, it must gradually be transformed into the nature of earth, yet so that the porosity of the figured earth be not spoiled or destroyed by too great and too frequent imbibition. For you must know, that if our matter were not naturally calcined, and it should happen that the calcined part of our figured earth were to remain continually in our Mercury, the Mercury would never be able to be turned into ashes. For then the dry quality of the earth, which should overcome the moisture, would itself remain moist. And in this way the humidum radical moisture, could never be changed into a natural lime, but would coagulate itself into an imperfect body, and moreover, the foreign and volatile sulfurity could never be separated from it, but would always remain in the belly of our Mercury, and resist the fire, which would have no power to consume or take it away. Therefore, when you calcine your matter, take diligent heed that you preserve its porosity. For if your matter were not porous, your work would be useless, since the virgin's milk could not beneficially penetrate it to impart to it its natural multiplying nourishment. Now, that I may instruct you well and reveal to you the great secret of this art, I will not conceal from you that you will be able to prevent the loss of porosity in your spiritual matter if, according to nature, you drive out from it the watery moisture and the corrupting sulfurities. But I teach you this also, that you can never separate or release the watery moisture and the volatile sulfurities of the fixed and corporeal spirits except by our natural calcination. For it alone can, according to nature, turn our earthly matter into ashes, by means of which the true lime is made, or the salt of nature, the nourishing fruit of the wise. This salt of nature, or natural lime, is compared to the heart, which draws to itself from the depth of the animal's nourishment the purest and best part. Even so, our natural lime, by its nature, draws to itself, and converts into its own ash nature, all the virgin's milk which is given to it for imbibition and nourishment. And be assured, this is a great secret in this art, to have the knowledge of the practice of our natural calcination, which preserves the porosity. My son, believe me with certainty, that this point, concerning natural calcination, is one of those upon which the ignorant commonly stumble, since the wise have always kept it concealed, and have never wished to explain it in their writings. And when they have spoken of it, it has always been only a disguise, and more often concerning another thing or body than the natural matter itself, in order to lead those who are not children of the art away from the true path. Therefore it is very difficult to draw the right light and understanding out of their books, unless one is enlightened by the light from above, or unless some good friend kindly reveals it, as I now do. Therefore make use of the practice of my experience, and allow yourself to be instructed by the explanation which I will give you on this point of natural calcination, by means of a comparison between the common chemical calcination and the philosophical. You know that the chymists, who work only upon hard bodies such as metals and minerals, when they wish to calcine them, must put them into strong fire or strong waters, to overcome the hardness of those metallic bodies. Yet they perform this unjust calcination only in order to render their matter more subtle and thus easier to dissolve, imagining that the philosophers also instituted their calcination solely for the purpose of facilitating dissolution. But see now how, after so much toil and labor, they accomplish nothing in their purpose. For their supposed matter is just as difficult to dissolve after their calcination as it was before. Therefore I say, that this chemical calcination is by no means comparable to or in agreement with the philosophical. For the common chemical calcination is done with great labor and violence, through strong waters or fires, which destroy the porosity, but ours is done without the great violence of flames. It is accomplished very easily by a gentle, mild fire, which is so natural that it naturally calcines our matter, without altering it or destroying the powers of the generative seeds, but preserves the porosity. For if our matter, which is the metallic seed and the generating spirit, or the first matter of all natural things, were subjected to the hellish fire of the common chymists, then our flowers, which can so easily be changed or altered, would be altogether destroyed. Yea, the body of our earthly matter itself could not endure the violence of their fire, but would in a very short time be wholly consumed, or so injured in its inward nature, that after the corruption and destruction of its virgin seed it would remain utterly barren. Therefore learn, my dear son, to conclude this chapter, from me, that the hidden secret of the natural calcination of the wise is nothing else than this, that one kills the living water, or the spirit of the world, and naturally turns it into the salt of nature, in such a manner that nothing of our earthly matter is destroyed or harmed, but its porosity and generative powers, which it possessed before the philosophical calcination, are preserved. Chapter 8. How our natural lime must naturally be washed and made white. That is, in what manner our earth must be sprinkled, imbibed, and nourished with the everlasting water of life of the wise. My son, since I have told you the reasons why the wise calcine their matter, I will not conceal from you that the other terminus, which is contrary to calcination, is inhumation. This is accomplished by imbibition, whereby the dryness of our calcination is moistened. It makes the corporeal spiritual, the fixed volatile, and the heavy light. In sum, the natural calcination and the imbibition of the wise are two things which perfect and complete our work. For the one kills the living body, and the other makes the dead body alive, and gives it a new life, provided only that the imbibition is done with and through our living and dry water, the watery fire or fiery water, and that this be performed skillfully, according to measure and proportion, as is fitting and necessary for the principium activum of nature. These imbibitions, I say, must be made with a very gentle, measured heat, proportioned to the effect or operation of nature, and with moderated cold. That is, the heat must be broken by the cold, and the cold by the heat. And know hereby, that this secret art between heat and cold is precisely that which brings soul and life into the body. And consider well, that if we would attain to the high perfection of our great masterpiece, the whole secret and chief work of the art consists in the measure and proportion of gentle and frequent imbibitions, which must be administered like a dew. And believe me truly, that all the effort and intention of the wise has gone, solely and especially, into nothing else but to imbibe and to dry. Therefore the wise also calcine their earth, in which they wish to sow the seed, so that they may warm it and make it thirsty, that it may eagerly drink and be abundantly impregnated with the juicy and natural moisture which it draws forth from our water of life, which water is its mother, its sister, and its nurse. For when the earth, in natural calcination, has lost its watery moisture through the imbibition of the wise, then we cause it to receive another radical, fatty moisture, which is much more suitable and agreeable to its nature. Thus I say, just as our natural lime is exceedingly dry, and freed from all foreign superfluous moisture, so it is also exceedingly thirsty. Therefore it eagerly drinks in that thing which it has lost, to refresh itself and to replace that which it had lost. My son, you must know this, when those parts in which the humidum radical, the radical moisture in man, resides, become dried out one after another, you may be assured that death is near, because the living moisture is no longer present in him, in which his natural heat was generated and maintained. Such, one may say, is also the condition of our earthly matter when it has been calcined. But when it is often imbibed, divided, and reduced into very small parts by frequent decoctions, and when this decoction is done gently, to the end that the watery vapor may be resolved and loosed and its radical moisture dried out and inspissated or thickened, then, I say, the natural heat increases and grows, and the fire multiplies and augments. By these things I wish you to understand that the operation or working of the nourishment which we give our matter proceeds altogether uniformly and in accordance with nature, for the nourishment we give it, by our frequent imbibitions, is nothing else but a movement flowing from the natural heat. The wise say that a composite thing consists of many connected and distinct parts, which exist in constant nourishment, sustenance, and decay, since there is always an influx and an efflux therein. Hence it is that one must always give it nourishment, so that it may always receive influx, refreshment, and renewal, until it attains to its terminus or goal. Hereby you see clearly that all nourishment takes place through expulsion and retention of different parts. And you know well also that retention always takes place in those parts which belong to nourishment, through and by means of the assimilation which those nourishing parts have with the nourished in nature. But expulsion takes place in those parts which are unlike nature and opposed to union. Hence it is necessary that all nourishment carry with it expulsive things or feces, although nevertheless each part of the nourishment is itself a nourisher. My son, I have determined to make you understand that the mercurial substance of our natural earth is not imbibed, nor washed, nor nourished, nor multiplied, except by things that are of like nature with its mercurial essence, and all other things that are contrary to its nature it rejects, and by no means takes them for nourishment. Those who have asked the wise with what they nourish their stone and their newborn child, have received this answer, which they have also left in their writings. They nourish their stone with the salt of nature, with the born wind and common water, by public philosophical imbibitions. In sum, you must know that in the philosophical work, too much and too little imbibition and drying are two contrary things. Yet note this, that excess is altogether contrary to perfection, whether it occur in the imbibition or in the drying of the matter. Too little, which is opposed to excess, always maintains itself in the path and way of the true measure of nature. Therefore too little is always to be praised, whether in imbibition or in drying. Hence, remember that a small imbibition requires only a small drying, and a small drying also only a small imbibition. When you perceive that by excessive fire our matter becomes too much dried and weakened, then you must strengthen it by proportioned imbibition. You may then give it stronger or more abundant food to eat. But if you should give it more than it can bear or digest, then our work would thereby be ruined. You know well that one does not drink without also eating, nor eat without also drinking, but take care that you do not give it too much to drink. For if you should give it too much water, you would spoil your entire work, for in wishing to imbibe our earth, you would destroy it. Therefore you must know that the washings and imbibitions of the wise must be done gradually and step by step, and yet with great art. But do not therefore imagine that the water with which the wise wash, bathe, and whiten their precious matter is common water. This point is the mirror and the principal matter of the wise in their undertaking of the natural work of their stone. You must also know that after natural calcination, our virgin earth, the metallic seed and sulfur of nature, is as it were dead, and would never have any power or life again if it were not to be revived. Now it is certain that they can never truly be revived except after they have been often and many times washed and bathed in the flaming fire of the water of life and of the heavenly fire, which is the life-giving Father who begets and brings forth all things that are in the world. And when you shall have, by repeated washing and bathing of our precious matter, in a natural way, in the life-giving rays of our fiery water and watery fire, then you will be able to say with certainty that the body which was dead is revived again, and that it is reborn and has become a glorified body through the union of this spirit of life. I say, that then our essential sulfur and salt and virgin earth, after they have been impregnated by the life-giving influences of the sun, will be sublimed and exalted in a philosophical way. That is, when the virgin earth of the philosophers shall have ascended into heaven, and when heaven shall have descended upon the earth. Then our earth of the wise, after it has been impregnated by the purest and most wholesome influences of the stars, will by this means be manured and enriched, and by its natural faculty, yes, it will in this way be very well prepared and apt to receive into its womb the metallic seed of the living gold of the philosophers, which will be sown in it, and will rot therein as naturally as the grain of wheat in the elementary earth. Behold here, these are the certain and true imbibitions and natural washings of wisdom, which are unavoidably necessary to the composition of our stone, of which you will learn the practice at the end of this book. Chapter 9. In what manner the solar golden seed and the mercury of the wise are to be naturally allured in the life-giving fire of the wise. Since I have at length and in due order instructed you how the philosophical golden tree must be planted and brought forth, I must now teach you many useful and necessary circumstances. I must tell you of the vessel, of the furnace, and of our life-giving fire, which has the power to bring our precious matters to their highest perfection. When you shall have completed your natural imbibitions and philosophical washings, and when you shall perceive that your matters have become white and gummy, then take your philosophical matters and join the gums together, as Maria the prophetess says, then put this composition into the philosophical egg and seal it hermetically. But take heed that you neither put too much nor too little of your matter into our vessel. For if the vessel were too large, our natural mercury would surely come to nothing, that is, its radical moisture would be so corrupted that the natural dryness could not work upon it, and the matter would thus become wholly barren. And if, on the other hand, you should take vessels that are too small, then our flowers would be so stifled that they could never bring their fruits to any perfection. Therefore take careful heed that, in respect to your matter, 3 parts of the vessel remain empty, and no more, and put no more into each vessel than 1 ounce or 2 at most. When you have thus placed your natural composition into a vessel of glass, which must be in true and just proportion to the quantity of your matter, then seal it hermetically. Thereafter you must place it into the furnace, to work with the fire of wisdom. And then you must govern your fire in such manner that the outward heat does not surpass the inward. For if it be too great, the union cannot take place, because too violent a heat would consume and burn the matter. If, on the contrary, the outward living fire be too small, then the spirit of the matter will remain immobile and inactive, and will accomplish nothing with its radical moisture, nothing will it coagulate, dry, or figure. For you know well that the spirits of the metals are dead, and as it were sunk into a sleep, and cannot operate or work unless they are revived and made living again by the living and life-giving fire. Therefore be very careful to make rightly the living fire of the wise, for this is one of the chief points of their work. And govern it so that it be neither too great nor too small. And when you maintain it in its proper degree of temperature, you will see your natural matters begin to attack one another, and to warm themselves each in the other, so that in a short time all will be turned into water, not indeed into common water, but into a slimy and viscous water. Above all, I charge you to conduct your work so wisely, that while you proceed slowly, your fire is always gentle and conformable and agreeable to the fire of nature. For a fire of this quality can never harm anything, rather, it is an oracle to awaken the warmth of the sulfur, and to bring forth wondrous operations. Know then that the greatest secret of this art consists in the fire, and that the wise have not without great reason and authority left it written, that the fire and the azoth are sufficient to prepare their stone. Here I must give you a warning concerning the interpretation of this text, that you may not fall into the common error of those who have wished to be esteemed learned philosophers, though they had no illumination of the hidden secrets of our Cabala. Therefore learn, that when the philosophers so expressly command us to make the fire aright, their meaning is not to counsel us to use common fire, though they well knew that the same could be governed by different degrees. Yet they knew also full well, that since common fire is by its nature actively hot and dry, it could never accomplish what they enjoin. It is therefore certain that their intention is nothing else than to signify to us that we must make a fire whose nature and hidden power are far different from that of common fire. Indeed, they give clearly to understand to those who have the gift of understanding, that the fire which they command to be made must be composed of such a matter that, at the same time, heat, dryness, and moisture are therein combined, so that, without any external interference, putrefaction, circulation, and conjunction of the matters, and a perfect cooking, may be accomplished. And although our sulfur and our mercury are, through the impregnation of the spirit of life, reborn and revived, yet they are not elevated in power and virtue, since the heavenly spirit has only joined itself to them, but has not yet with an indissoluble bond united and bound itself with them permanently. Now it is through this perfect and most necessary union of these precious matters that these bodies become so strong and powerful as to perform the wondrous operations and effects which we see them accomplish. But this union cannot be brought into act unless our heavenly mercury be coagulated and figured with our philosophical sulfur or metallic seed. And this figuring must be done by a natural cooking, in a nourishing and life-giving fire, which is the philosophical fire of the wise. In sum, after I have shown and made clear to you that the philosophers do not burn their things when they make their stone, and that they use another fire than the common when they make their work, I will now show you further the difference, by comparing the one with the other. 1. Now, the fire of the Alchemists is common and known to everyone, whereas ours is artificial and difficult to obtain. 2. Theirs is elementary, but ours is natural, and just as life-giving as the heavenly. 3. Theirs is actively warm and dry, since they make it from wood, oil, or coals. But ours is warm, dry, and moist, and more spiritual than material. For, moreover, theirs accomplishes nothing unless it has air, while ours performs its operation when it is shut up, and must moreover be in a secure vessel, so tightly closed that not the least breath of air may enter. 5. The chemical fire cannot be well governed, and it ceases or goes out when it lacks the matter that maintains it. But ours always has its steady and uniform operation, it maintains itself without any human hand, and through a spiritual vapor it beams and circulates unceasingly upon our matter. 6. The chemical fire is active or working, warm and dry. Its first quality is that it consumes and destroys everything on which it works. And that this is true, we well know, for their gentlest fire is the balneum Mariae, and yet one can boil eggs in it. Now, if their gentlest fire can break apart the seed of a thing, then it follows truly that their other, much fiercer fires will do so all the more quickly and violently. As for our fire, it warms our precious matter very gently and gradually, and by a continual radiation it cooks it, preserves it, congeals it, moistens it, nourishes it, and increases it in power and virtue. In sum, the philosophical fire is altogether unlike the chemical. Theirs is violent and corrosive, but ours is gentle, kindly, and natural. It is enclosed, aerial, vaporous, circulating, encompassing the matter round about, bright, pure, gentle, uniform, ever-nourishing, temperate, and just as nourishing and life-giving as the heavenly. The most wonderful thing about the philosophical fire is that it is entirely like the matter of their stone, and is drawn forth from the purest substance of its inward parts, through the art of our rare secret. I can also assure you that this true fire of the philosophers is also their genuine artificial balneum mariae, whose secret, namely, how it must be made, they have concealed no less carefully than the matter of the philosophical stone itself. For the knowledge of the one brings with it the understanding of the other. Chapter 10. An admonition to the son concerning the right use and dignity of this work. My dear son, since long ago I resolved to leave you in writing what I had previously conveyed to you by word of mouth, I have desired to do so now, in my old age, to satisfy this longing. I write this, not for the purpose of giving you new teaching, since God, in His special grace, has already filled you and, through me, revealed to you the knowledge of the highest things that are in nature. Rather, I write so as to leave you a memorial and pledge of my affection, and especially, by setting forth my thoughts in this art, to show you what thoughts you ought to hold regarding it, and in what spirit you should possess it. I know well that you do not yet hold the same view of it as I do. But considering the majesty of this subject, I have judged that my words would not be in vain, but would confirm you in the good works you have begun. And that, when I die, I may have this comfort, that I entrusted such a gift of God to one who, by his office, is well instructed and a God-fearing, pious man. For otherwise to act would be to misuse the gift of God. By this I also mean the goods of wealth and health, which among the ungodly and those unworthy of life might be turned to evil use. That would be to act against the providence of God, who gives to one man a short, to another a long life, who sets some in poverty and others in riches, all for the increase of His glory and the salvation of souls. Therefore you must, as much as lies within you, never help to damn him whom God wills to save through poverty, nor prolong the life of him who would use it only to offend God and plunge into ruin if he were to live long. Otherwise it would be to resist the will of Almighty God and to make yourself guilty of rendering an account for many souls. Consider then, my son, that the secret of the universal medicine, which I teach you, is as it were a branch of the tree of life, and a special grace of God, and cannot be otherwise. The great goodness of God gives this gift not for the possessor's own use, but that he may serve others thereby, as we see in the gift of tongues. From this you see clearly that it is not permitted you to reveal this secret which I teach you. It belongs to God the Lord alone, who knows the hearts of men. Unless it be that the goodness of God reveals to you a man's good heart, and moves you by His grace to impart it to him. It does not belong to you either to appropriate the usefulness of this work to yourself, or to use it according to your own will, except only to live according to your station, in accord with the rule, he who serves the altar should also live from it. I am not unaware that, just as this high gift is not given to him who possesses it for his own use, so neither is it given for his merit, since it is a gift of grace. Woe, therefore, to him who, when he sees that such grace has befallen him from God, shows himself ungrateful toward the great goodness of God. My dear son, consider what an extraordinary and special gift of God it is, to prolong life, to give strength, vigor, and health. Therefore, you must not content yourself with serving God the Lord only with ordinary and common works. This science and this knowledge generally move our will, and the will directs our actions, our deeds and omissions. Since then you have special knowledge, should not your will, as well as your deeds and works, also be special and above the common course? You must always keep these words in your thoughts, that the more God has given to a man, the more he will require from him, and that 5 talents will be demanded from him who has received them. My dear child, ponder these words well, and hold it certain, that I would rather see you a good Christian than a good philosopher. I esteem more the least degree of faith and true love toward God and my neighbor than all other divine and worldly knowledge and sciences. For on that great day we shall not be called to account for our sciences, but only for our love and for the works which must necessarily follow from it. Since now God grants you the knowledge of natural things, strive and endeavor always to set the chief thing first, that you be a pious man. Oh, what a delightful spectacle it is for the holy angels and men when these 2 qualities or virtues are found together in one person. You must also consider that the gracious God, who made man in his own image, willed also that man should resemble him in many things, things which might seem contrary both to the majesty of God and the unworthiness of man. For you well know that it is written of God alone, the whole earth is mine. That is to say, all goods which the earth contains belong to him. It is also written of him alone that life and death are in his hands, and that he alone is the knower of hearts. All this binds you not only to love him and serve him, but also not lightly to reveal our art. Now, to prove what I say, you see that in giving you this knowledge, God has in some manner made you like himself, since he not only created you in his image, but also because he has given you greater true goods than the whole earth, as it were, contains. For through this wondrous science he gives you the treasure of human life, making you, as it were, Lord over the life and death of men, since by this knowledge health and strength may be imparted and preserved, and life prolonged. Indeed, the least that may be said of you is that you are something more than a king. My son, will you, when you are somewhat more than a king, behave and act like a slave? Are you not rather bound to perform divine works, and to conform yourself to the will of God, who has bestowed upon you such exceeding grace as to make you thereby half a god? I also said that God alone is the knower of hearts, to show you that it is not permitted to you to communicate this talent or bestowed gift to anyone, whoever he may be, except by chance, for you cannot know the hearts of men. Yet I reserve here the case of divine inspiration, which may so dispose matters that you may meet a godly man, and clearly discern the ground of his heart, and in such knowledge impart to him your art. Believe me, my son, what I teach you is of no small importance. For when you are so highly bound to act rightly and well, and to manage aright the fruits of the tree of life which you possess, what will it be before God if you misuse the tree itself, by making it common among the ungodly? If its fruits could bring them to destruction, how much more then would the tree itself do so? In sum, my son, you ought to be an imitator of God in distributing the fruits and possessing the tree, that is, in the knowledge of so high a mystery. God has goods and gifts for us, not for himself. Thus the Lord God has placed the treasure of human life in your hands, not that you should be the possessor of it for yourself alone and for your nearest friends, but that you should distribute it among all the pious, whom you judge worthy. Know that the Lord God wills to reveal this secret only to the godly, therefore you also must do so. If you do this, then you will be the cause that my bones rest gently in the grave, in the expectation of the blessed coming of the Son of God, whom I earnestly beseech to meet you with his grace and blessing, to keep you steadfast in good, and mercifully to grant you the blessed union with him. Amen. Soli Deo Gloria. To God alone be the glory.